Welcome to Atlas Live, Atlas Public Policy's video podcast that brings together industry and policy leaders for timely discussions about clean technology, transportation, the built environment, manufacturing, climate change, and more.
Welcome to Atlas Live. I'm your host, Nick Nigro, and today we're looking ahead to Climate Week, New York City 2026. What to watch for, what themes are likely to shape the conversation, and how policymakers, businesses, and advocates can make the most of the week. Personally, it's my first time going to Climate Week, so I'm super excited about it. I'm also excited to welcome back Angela Barranco, the Executive Director for North America Climate Group, to help us preview what is going to happen and what's shaping up to be another big year for climate. Welcome to the show, Angela.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So Climate Week New York City has become one of the largest, hands down, largest climate convenings in the world. For those who are like new to Climate Week, how did this first, how did it come about? What was the genesis of it?
What's really fun is that I think it was a very kind of organic moment.
Mm-hmm.
The UN recognized that climate change was becoming this sort of very important emergent issue. And so they called a few of their friends, including Climate Group, as well as Governor Schwarzenegger, actually from California.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. That gives us a time frame. That's our
Exactly.
late 2000s,
Exactly.
2008.
Sorry,
9.
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Said, hey, well, we've got this, general meeting that we're doing in September. Why don't we pull together some events, informational stuff, briefings in September around that? And so it really came together, and then it has just exploded with time. It's been really cool to see it kind of evolve through the years.
Yeah, I can imagine. And for you, from your perspective, being involved with for so long, like what's been the most surprising change or the evolution of what Climate Week has meant?
I think one, the size of it.
Yeah,
It's just so last year, over 1,000 events. These are just the official events.
1,000 events.
So this is not people, this is events. So yes, when we talk about the survivor's guide to your first climate week, we'll have a conversation about how to navigate 1,000 events.
Okay.
But the truth is,
Wow.
with over 1,000 events, you're looking at such a breadth and depth of, I don't know, interest, enthusiasm, concern, knowledge.
Mhm.
It's just really amazing to see that kind of blossom and grow. And especially over the years now, this is going to be my 5th Climate Week. And so, having seen that in multiple iterations, even in the last 5 years, it has changed tremendously. And so one is just size. But the second, and I think this is the more crucial one for us who are really thinking about how do we make change at this moment where it's not the easiest landscape that we've been working under.
Right.
Is the focus has changed so much in these 5 years, and that's just what I can speak to, but, obviously, some of my colleagues have been doing this for 10 years, right? And I think 10 years ago, sort of in that post-Paris, glow
Euphoria.
we can call it, yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody was just like, "I raise my hand for climate change. Yay, I am here, part of the solutions, and I'm gonna offer you what I offer you," right?
Mhm.
And it was very organic, very, shall we say, kind of like your own choose your own adventure on that way in some
Uh-huh.
ways. But now I think the focus has narrowed, and in some ways due to a lot of the external pressures, right? Like we know that our climate impacts are increasing every single day, right?
Mhm.
The risk in terms of our financial systems, our insurance, all of that, all is like going through the roof, right?
Mhm.
We're sort of hitting that nexus of like risk and actual impact that I think we've all been sort of waiting for. And so what I've really seen, especially since last year, is this intense focus on implementation.
Mhm.
I love all the wonderful events with all the cool celebrities and everything. I wanna know who is here from this company, that company, or this government because I need to talk to them about a deal I wanna make. I wanna talk to them about resourcing my resilience plan. I have a great idea in terms of new technology, right? Like, that is really actionable and really specific, and I think that is very, very cool from, people like us.
Yeah, for sure. Because so I've been in the climate space for over 15 years too, and certainly back then it was a lot about planning and
Oh, yeah.
anticipation of what was to come and
Yeah.
what our target's gonna be. And what I hear you saying now, at least at Climate Week, it's really about what are we experiencing right now? What are we gonna do at this exact moment? And that is a big change. And that's exciting for, it's it's exciting for a lot of us, especially for the first timers like me. I can't wait to see what I'm going to experience. So, from your perspective, though, since you've been doing this for a little while, what are you most excited about at this year's event?
Well, I mean, I will say, this focus on implementation is my sweet spot too, and I
Hmm.
love, love, love to see, not just the sort of very focused, kind of activity that people are looking for, but the connectivity to other opportunities. So, just as an example, we 2 years ago worked with a sort of loose collection of people thinking about climate resilience, and
Hmm.
some of that work that had come in this sort of post Paris like planning
Yeah, yeah.
flourishes, right?
Hmm.
Are people going like, how do you issue bonds around this? How do
Hmm.
you look at private sector engagement when it comes to resilience? What are the many factors, wildfire, flood, getting into the nitty gritty details? And so we brought together some people somewhat informally. I think it was a panel. I forget now exactly what we did. But
Hmm.
what I heard at this year's US Climate Action Summit, which we also host in April in DC, um, is that they had taken that little spark,
Hmm.
formed their own coalition of decision makers around resilience, and they've been meeting for 2 years.
Oh,
And so for me, it's like, there's some
very
wonderful,
inspirational.
yeah, it's really
Yeah.
cool. And
Ah.
so what we do with these events, and this is, maybe getting a little engagement geeky on me, but so forgive me, but I think the one and done is fine and
Hmm.
great, and it's wonderful to do that. But our job as people who want to create change, systemic change in this world, is actually to drive those events to be momentum builders, right? And
Hmm.
so seeing a group of people who use that to build momentum, to build community, to then build opportunity together is so exciting.
And so I guess, yeah, that's a quick follow-up on that.
Yeah.
How do you make sure that you have all the right people in the room for that, for
Yeah.
those kind of conversations? Because it's very easy to collect a bunch of people, especially in a place like DC, who will just spout off all kinds of
Right.
opinions and such, but that they're not necessarily the knowledge base for the issue. So how do you make sure that you have the right people in the room?
It's so funny. What's the expression, like find the doers,
Yeah.
right? Find the helpers, right? Um, and I think part of it is in the art of convening that, one thing, it's wonderful to get all this activity and get people really excited. And that's why people come, right? There's a
Hmm.
thousand events. There's so much you can do. It really is choose your own adventure. But when it comes down to it, as the conveners, it's our job to handpick the doers and
Hmm.
bring in the resource to the room. So one thing we've been really thinking about over the last year to 2 years is not just like wonderful to have these experts on XYZ issue talking about how they're experts in the thing that we all know or may learn more about. And that's
Hmm.
great knowledge sharing and information that's critical too. Put them in a room with a group of people who have power of implementation. So you're
Hmm.
talking about state and locals, or you're talking about even congressional members or international governments,
Hmm.
plus banks and folks who are resource like green banks.
Hmm.
That's
That's
alchemy.
where, yeah,
Like
right.
that
No,
is where you actually make something happen. So,
no, very
and you can't
special.
do that across 1,000 events, of course.
No.
But we really try to work with all the folks who are convening. We try to encourage people to really think about impact. But we, as Climate Group, and we, as the folks who sort of do this every year, and as well as U.S. Leaders Forum, we want to think about that, creating that momentum.
So, with this coming week being as big as potentially ever, there's going to be a lot of challenges for people who are attending, especially the newbies like myself, but policymakers in general are going to have trouble prioritizing,
Yeah.
right? So what's your advice for them about how they should make the most of this, of the, if they get to stay the whole week, amazing, but if you only get a couple days, what should they make sure they're paying attention to?
So a couple of things. I mean, and this is true for everybody because
Mhm.
I think many of the people, and I would say everybody who comes to Climate Week, frankly, is an expert in their own territory.
Mhm.
It is, are you a grassroots leader? Are you a member of Congress? Are you a communications professional? Right? Everybody comes with a degree of expertise. So one thing to do, and I really encourage, especially newbies, is like don't overfill your schedule.
Mhm.
Bring sneakers. So I'll come back to all these points. And be open to both meeting new people as well as like surfing your way through the week. And so let me explain like
Yeah,
all three
surf. Tell me
points.
about yeah.
So on the first point, I think don't overfill your schedule because the truth is, put some good points there, but a lot of people, especially senior leadership, tend to think of things as speaking opportunities. Like
Mhm.
you have to be tagged to a speaking opportunity. Otherwise, it's like
You
not
can't
worth your time.
justify it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's hard. Mhm.
But the truth is actually, and again, I have a preference for those closed door, deal making kind of things. If those are the rooms you really want to be in,
Mhm.
right? And so try to find and network your way through your network to get to those conversations because that's really the magic that's happening in Climate Week. I mean, certainly the speeches are powerful and inspiring. The conversations are fun and electrifying. Even the casual moments are great. But for me, it's that I'm here to get something done. How do I move it forward?
Yeah.
The sneakers are very critical.
Yeah. So
You
casual is okay.
well, a lot of formal on top, sneakers on bottom,
Okay.
because you will
That's
do a lot of walking.
okay.
And
That's
so,
fair.
if you need some inner soles, maybe some new sneakers, you
Okay.
should get ready.
I might have to get a new pair.
I like
Okay.
that.
All right.
And then
Good.
on the third point, the surfing, I always joke, I mean, it's a tidal wave. There is no way to absorb or be a part of 1,000 events. You
Mhm.
will never like it is the what is it? The parable of the elephant, right? Like everybody is in some other corner doing a bunch of stuff. So some people get really deep. I only want to do industrial decarb. Okay,
Mhm.
go, enjoy, go spend your entire week on industrial decarb. Some people are like, I only want to spend time with Illinois people, and they'd go
Mhm.
in that direction. Or some people just go, I'm going to start my day at a breakfast that I have some people at, and then I'm going to ask people where they're going next.
Mhm.
And I'm going to just literally surf my way through the week. And
Ah,
it's like, it's a really fun.
it feels like you're at a house party and you're just making your way through the crowd, you know?
I mean, you kinda are.
Yeah.
And I
Okay.
think you have to
I
leave
like
yourself
it.
open to what I call, like, Climate Week magic, where you're
Yeah.
kinda like I mean, every year it happens to me where you end up at 10 PM in some random event that you had no plans for with your new best friends who come from a
Yeah.
totally different industry, and, like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that certainly does sound cool, and I'm hoping that's gonna happen for me too. So you mentioned earlier some of the closed door meetings and how that created groups that have spawned from events that you guys have convened. Do you have other favorite success stories that you wanna highlight that you
Yeah.
can attribute to Climate Week and say, "We did that"?
Oof, that's hard because it is such a collective
Yeah.
effort. I will say I'll point out a couple of other things, and
Mhm.
it's interesting, Christiana Figueres has been really talking about this a lot, is how to sustain a movement, and we
Mhm.
have to sustain ourselves. And so there's been this sort of new event that's popped up, and I know some people out there will be like, "Oh, but I want some wonky policy event." Well, okay. But just creating community amongst people who are doing really hard work at really
Mhm.
difficult times is sustaining our ability to do that work moving forward. And so I heard of a group that does this Friday almost like deconstruction of Climate Week moment where all they
Oh,
hang out and they like, meditate and they do like, just like literally like chill out for 2 hours with a bunch of
wow.
other people because this has been a crazy week and you need to do that, right? Like
Yeah,
decompress, right? And
cool.
then there's a lot of creative stuff, and I think this is a point that I've been thinking about a lot in my career overall, is like, it's very easy to get caught up in a policy wonky, sciencey kind of a place, but the truth is, we need the artists and the creative thinkers as well because they think about these problems, like, inside out, right? Like, and
Yeah.
having worked with artists in a lot of my career, it's an incredibly valuable kind of collaboration, and so there's these amazing events that go on throughout the week that are deconstructing all of this in a totally different way and expanding our ability to think about how we get things done. And so challenge yourself to go out there and try some of these things. And they sound silly at first, but
Mhm.
people are, earnest and investing time and money.
Yeah, I think some of the most, memorable work trips I've had has been ones that have opened my eyes to looking at the problems I face in a different way, and what better way to do that than with an artist, musician, whatever. I think that
Absolutely.
they can really make you think about things in a very different way. So, is there anything you wanna share more about that for this year that any particular events that you
Well,
shout out?
I may have heard through the grapevine that you were hosting a karaoke night. And so speaking of
Ah,
artists, I,
well.
I have some questions, and I know our audience would be very interested in
Yeah.
hearing more. But
Yeah.
in terms of this karaoke night,
Mhm.
I would like to know your preferred karaoke song.
Oh, well, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm sort of a karaoke aficionado, and so
Oh,
I've been doing karaoke for a very long time. So anybody who saw my post on LinkedIn about it and has liked it, it's probably somebody who's come with me to karaoke over the years. But I'm gonna tailor whatever I do for the audience. So if we're talking rock, pop, whatever, classic songs from before I was born to trying to like match whatever is popular today, I'm just going to have to read the room.
absolutely.
And, I think that if you are going to Climate Week and you're going to be there on Monday night, get in touch with us at Atlas, and I'll make sure you get an invitation to it. It's open to anybody. So
Yeah.
it'll be a lot of fun.
I think it's gonna be great. I'll be there.
Yeah.
I'm actually
So-
relatively new to karaoke, I will tell you.
oh,
I like to sing, but mostly just to myself. And
yeah.
then a friend of mine really opened my eyes to the beauty of just belting one out. So
There's something to be said about getting up in front of a room, particularly of your colleagues at work, and really letting yourself be vulnerable for a few minutes and letting them know something about you that they didn't know before. Karaoke is very good at that. And what I'll say is, it is very common in my experience that I'll be able to get somebody up on the stage that's like, "Oh, I don't ever sing karaoke." It's like, you
I
just wait. Yeah. So,
well, I also like the sleeper person, who
mhm.
just like comes out and is
Oh,
like has an amazing voice. I do not have an amazing voice. So
yeah.
I'm more of the spirit person rather than the
Yeah.
talent.
Yeah,
So
me neither. I just if you bring energy though to a
yeah,
song, just like if you bring energy to the workplace, you're
exactly.
gonna get some stuff done. So, um, speaking of work,
All right.
so we last year you were on the show back for when we used to have EV Hub Live, and we talked about Climate Week going into 2025. And so tell us a little bit about what happened there from the perspective of how it's informing what we're going to do this year.
Oh, it's actually EV has been a really interesting journey. So
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up because so last year at last year's Climate Week, obviously with the change of administration in the United States, and some changes globally,
Hmm.
it's not just here. I think folks were really having kind of what I would call almost like a reckoning moment. Like, okay, so this is harder than we thought,
Hmm.
but what can we get done? And so we actually hosted a closed door conversation at Climate Week
Mm.
around sort of this landscape question about EVs in the United States.
Mhm.
And we had some wonderful partners with us who, could be frank and honest in that closed door room. And so there was some work earlier in the year at the US Leaders Forum and prior to that around heavy duty truck pricing transparency.
Mhm.
So for folks who don't know, the quick 30-second is that, obviously there's been regulatory mechanisms that have been used to be able to encourage push,
Mhm.
for heavy duty truck. And one of them was this California rule that, unfortunately was postponed slash
Dismantled in
just
some way. Yeah, yeah, advanced clean trucks for those following at home.
yeah.
Mhm.
And so in the wake of that, there was some really creative work done around, well, okay, so what can we do? And it was actually such a simple solution that I just love this example because essentially when well one of sorry rolling it back a little bit,
Yeah.
I have to give some background before I give you the example why, but like just like buying a car, sometimes it's not transparent what the
No,
full
there's a
price.
suggested retail price.
Exactly. So there's not just on the buying side, right?
Yeah.
So you have like your negotiation you have with the guy at the dealership, right?
Mhm.
But then there's the cost of the car over the lifetime. So when you think about your car, you're thinking about oil changes and maintenance and gas prices and all that stuff. That's the life of the car.
Mhm.
And then at the end of life of that car, there's also a price.
Mhm.
Someone has to take that car, dismantle it, put it in a trash, whatever they have to do, right?
Mhm.
So on heavy duty trucks, this is wildly even more hard to figure out because
Mhm.
people have not been able to quantify, although now some people have, the overall cost of these trucks.
Mhm.
And when you're a business, unlike we as lovely people who sometimes just make decisions on a whim,
Yeah.
businesses really want to see those numbers, not just the upfront costs, but the maintenance and the
Mhm.
lifetime costs of their purchase, right? And
Right.
so that's how you can truly tell the difference between, say, a big diesel truck and an EV truck.
Yeah.
So it turns out when you give people information like that, they usually pick the EV truck.
Yeah.
And so what's really cool is now we're in this whole conversation, and that same group of people from last year's Climate Week have been
Okay.
sort of working together through the year and getting some
Wonderful.
data together and
Yeah.
talking to folks and whatever. And so, we're entering this Climate Week with sort of more of a conversation about how creating transparency around that can actually entice fleets, governments, whoever is out there purchasing these vehicles to incentivize them.
Mhm.
And we're literally doing nothing. We're not reducing the price. We're not adding a tax credit or something difficult through a policy lens. It's literally like outside of that whole world. And so for
Yeah.
me, that's such a huge win. Like,
Well, you're adding transparency to a otherwise opaque process. So you're doing something.
exactly. No, absolutely. But we always tend to, especially in the climate community, think regulatory first. And I
Yeah.
think this is one of those examples where,
Mm.
wow, we can actually do something outside of that
Yeah.
system to some degree.
And
Now, there are regulatory components that can come help that, but you know what I mean. Anyway,
For
I don't
sure.
want to get
For
too
sure.
super wonky because
Well, no,
this
we're
is
gonna
not
go
a
a little
trucks
bit further
audience.
down, not this particular rabbit hole, but the policy rabbit
Oh,
hole, because
good.
we're a policy
Yeah.
shop. We have to. But I really appreciate you bringing up that example of things that you can get done now that improve the performance of the market
Yeah.
that aren't a command and control kind of policy.
Yes.
Because at the moment, command and control policy is not as feasible as it once was.
Yeah.
And so, um, the shifting gears a little bit, if we look at what policy is or an issue is top of mind for most people, it's affordability.
Yes.
And frankly, one of the reasons that people had challenges with the command and control policy was its impacts on affordability.
Yeah.
So it is still the number one issue for people these days, is affording everyday life here in the U.S. Last year at Climate Week, it was the top issue. This year, it's probably going to still be the top issue. How do you think the climate community is doing taking that issue on?
So I think not to overly critique us, but it's with love.
Mhm.
I think we're a little late coming to that argument, but we're there now. And I
Mhm.
think that's really wonderful to see. So I think on the affordable thing, like I could not agree more. Like I honestly think it's going to be for a few more years, at least in the United States, but it's not just here. And I think
Mhm.
it's funny, a lot of the global community tends to focus on the US as sort of the negative actor at this moment. And I just don't think that that's accurate because global oil prices are impacting everybody. And in
Right.
some places like Europe, even worse. Right.
Right.
And
Mhm.
so
Natural
affo-
gas prices there
natural
too.
gas prices, right?
Yep.
And so affordability is kind of at the core of this larger question I think we have to ask ourselves as a community, which is how do we actually intersect with real people on these issues in ways that are meaningful to them? And this is less about the concept of the climate voter, because to me, that is a wonderful opportunity, but it's still kind of niche, right? Like it kind of takes um, the voter profile, chops it up to a very small proportion of people who then intersect with the policy sphere, which is a very elite kind of a cycle that you're building, right?
Mhm.
When you think about consumers and affordability, that is literally all of us.
Mhm.
There are well, maybe okay, handful of billionaires exempted, right? But
Yeah, maybe they don't care as much
exactly,
about it. Yeah.
most of us, we care
Mhm.
about all of those things every single, and it's very relatable. And so
Mhm.
to me, that consumer framework, if you thought about IRA and all of the policy wins in that sphere, they all ended in tax credits for individuals.
Mhm.
And I think we missed that at the time. We
Mhm.
were so focused on sort of the conversation around the decision makers and whatever. We missed out that the car dealership needed a dealer who was actually going to sell that car with knowledge,
Mhm.
and a buyer who could walk in and understand that the credits were going to make that affordable, not just today, but through the life cycle of that car. And so we need consumer information, consumer knowledge, but we need to be speaking the words, in the frames of consumers. And I think that's affordability, right?
Mhm.
So I think it's really,
Do you
really important.
Okay, good. Well, I'm hoping to see more of that when I'm up in New York, for sure. You mentioned, oil prices. A lot has happened in the oil market in the last 6 months because of U.S. and Israeli actions in Iran, driving up the price of oil to very very high levels right now. and they've been sustained now for about 6 months. So with that in mind, along with lots of tension in trade and other issues that are impacting not just energy markets, but transportation and other parts of the economy that directly hit at consumers. How is all that going to be part of the discussion this year?
So I think it's really interesting is there are public discussions and there are
Hmm.
behind the scenes discussions.
Hmm.
And the public discussions, they might look pretty similar from year to year.
Hmm.
But starting last year and definitely this year, I would keep your ears open for questions about supply chain.
Hmm.
So from a business perspective,
Hmm.
that is everybody's concern right now.
Hmm.
How can I ensure that I'm going to get these goods and services all done and delivered to my customers and still meet my quarterly goals? Right?
Hmm.
Like this stuff is really impacting every single day. And then from individuals and consumers and voters, of course, affordability is going to be the sort of framework for that. But I think what's interesting is that I think everybody's talking about it to some
Hmm.
degree. It may not be exactly like, oh, we're having this um, you know, conversation about geopolitical dynamics, but
Right.
what we're talking about is the rising insurance costs because
Hmm.
we're unable to maintain a handle on all of these sort of different pieces of the business or
Hmm.
whatever is happening. And I mean that it's sort of interesting. You have to kind of read between the lines a little bit sometimes, and I think this is going to be a year where that is going to be
Yeah,
happening.
I can believe that.
Mhm.
So another thing that's happening short time after Climate Week is an election in the
Yes.
U.S. It's going to be, if people were tired of hearing about it in the news, get ready because it's going to get a lot. It's going to get a lot more saturation in the next few months, and so politics is going to be on the mind of many for sure in New York. And so when you talked about the climate voter earlier, what do you think, or what can you expect from the community when it comes to climate and energy messaging at Climate Week this year? What are they going to be emphasizing?
So I'm actually really excited about this because I think I mean, how to phrase this so it doesn't sound like a positive, but the changes that have been enacted over the last 2 years
Hmm.
have been incredibly difficult and devastating, and all of the awfulness that we can say. But there is an opportunity
Hmm.
in all that devastation to create something that is perhaps more efficient, better aligned, better at delivering for the American people.
Hmm.
And what I hear from members of Congress that we talk to or local elected officials is a focus on delivery.
Hmm.
I want to get you your XYZ, your grid, your EV vehicle, your green steel, whatever it is, faster.
Hmm.
I want to get it to you cheaper.
Hmm.
And in the long term, that's what matters to those voters. And
Hmm.
so I'm already sort of seeing that, but and there is a bit of a like a more wonky policy thing happening with a lot of really interesting spheres around um, sort of redesigning, rethinking what the federal and the state and local landscape could look like from a policy perspective. And again,
Does
it's
that
about
mean like more emphasis out of Washington and more in the states and locals, or what does that look like?
I think it's all of the above. I mean,
Yeah.
part of this is the federal government has a really important role to play.
Mhm.
And I don't think I'm being radical when I say that.
Right.
And I think people just want their government to work.
Hmm.
And I would say for us who've worked in federal government or in state government or local government is hard sometimes.
Hmm.
Sometimes government doesn't work the way
Hmm.
you want it to, or as fast as it needs to, or isn't as responsive to the people as you'd want it to be. And so for a lot of people, what I'm hearing for the first time, and I've worked in politics now a couple decades, is a little bit of a challenging of the norms of
Yeah.
what it looks like I mean, it's not because we want to, but it's because we are.
Yeah.
And that is a good thing. And so I hear some 2027 talk around what does 2027 bring in terms of some of these innovations and sort of new looks at regulatory ingenuity, but also 2029. And I
Yeah.
think that's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I hear you on the opportunity to do things differently.
Yeah.
Because, I think the public can, the, with the public's sort of flipping back and forth between the two parties over the last several years. I think the message that sends to government is what you're doing is not working for me, and I'm
Yeah.
going to keep trying a different party,
Until
and
somebody gets me what
until
I need.
somebody, yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, I hear
But I
that.
think also, like, and again, I've worked in all levels of government, and some of the best, political folks I've worked with, they never forget that bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
And one could say in some ways we've lost that thread. But right now, like, that's what we are here to deliver as
Mm-hmm.
people in government. We are here to deliver for our constituents. And
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, that's what we're here to
Yeah.
do. And so I agree. I think people should be frustrated.
Yeah.
And so I think it's time for that to come back in fashion.
Okay, so we're just about out of time. So I got one last question for
Yeah.
you, and that's just about the optimism that you bring. You work in public policy, therefore you have to be an optimist as a person, in my opinion. You can't work in this field and be a pessimist. So what gives you optimism heading into this year's Climate Week?
Um, it's the fact that even though there's all of this talk about, the top line message,
Mm-hmm.
challenge, challenge, everybody's canceling climate change, da, 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 da. We're on track to beat over 1,000 events this year. Like we're
Yeah.
on track to
Yeah.
get even more people at the table.
Yeah.
And that's just not just because they want to go to parties, but they're there to get something done,
Yeah.
right? And so the enthusiasm, the interest, the focus on this
Mm-hmm.
is greater than it's ever been. And the focus on the right things,
Mm-hmm.
implementation, actual deal making. So that is super exciting to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other part is this vision, because I think for a long time we've been really focused first on doomsdaying. Come on, believe climate change because it's going to kill everybody. Like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, great. I mean, that doesn't inspire anyone, but it scares the bejesus out of everyone. So what are we going to do about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we spent a lot of time and kind of like puffy, but at the time the right thing was like, I raised my hand for climate change. And but what does that mean, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now we're in this, like, I believe, entering this new emerging place where we're kind of sober minded. We are seeing the impact, so we have to really focus, but we have a vision for what this could be, not just in the negative, but in the positive. Like, how about this, guys? How about we rebuild our communities so that everybody has access to parks,
Mm-hmm.
so that everybody has cleaner air and cleaner water? How about we spend the $1 trillion that we're going to do on climate resilience, improving access to mass transportation
Mm-hmm.
and ease of living, right? Like, that's really cool world that we all want to live in.
Yeah.
And I know that there's always something that we're all going to be like doomsaying about, but to me, that vision of the future,
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm starting to see people think about it that way, and I think that's a really exciting thing because it can be scary. It is scary, but if we're gonna pour resource, including our time and attention in this, let's make it better.
Yeah, I appreciate that optimistic tone and solutions oriented mindset. I think that's exactly what we need right now. And so thank you for that last bit of optimism on the way out.
Absolutely.
So that brings us to the close of this episode of Atlas Live. I want to thank Angela for joining us. I can't wait to hang out with you in New York soon. And again, if you're gonna be up there, send us a note and we'll get you an invite to that karaoke party. All right, bye everybody. See you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining this episode of Atlas Live, Atlas Public Policy's video podcasts. You can follow the show on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you choose to listen to your podcasts.